Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you. I'd like to call our regular meeting of our Town Plan and Zoning Commission to order. Today is Monday, November 4th, 2024, and it's about 6:33 on my clock. That clock's a little fast. My name is Rob Klee. I'm a chair of our Woodbridge Town Plan and Zoning Commission. Other members who are with us here tonight are Paul Schatz, Kathy Hunter, Andrew Skolnick, Jeff Kennedy, and I believe Yoni Zamir is on his way. And should be here shortly. But we do have a quorum, so we can go ahead. Chris Sullivan, always nice to see you. You are our town land use analyst and zoning enforcement officer, and you ably support us in our endeavors. For Selectman Cardozo, good to see you as well. Our agenda tonight has been available on the town website. We have a continuation of our public hearing on the cleanup of our zoning regulations. We have some new business today, which is the receipt of an application for amendment of our zoning regulations from Attorney John Nuff on behalf of Angelo Malisi regarding our opportunity housing provisions. In our work session, we'll have a discussion with Derek, and I apologize for the last name. Iwaskowitz, thank you, regarding the timeline of the work, the excavation work at 110 Luciani Street, and then we have some other items for our work session. So, first up is the continuation of our public hearing of the cleanup of our zoning regulations for the town of Woodbridge. Chris, do we have to formally call this back into session?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so a motion to...
No, you can just call it to order.
I'm calling us into order. And we will have additional opportunity for public comment, but I do know that we've received some written comment, and to members of the commission, you should have that printed out for you. One is a letter received today from Scott Hunter, and the second is a letter or an email also received today from Robert Rosasco. So this will be entered into the record for the public hearing on our cleanup of our zoning regulations, and we can talk about those during our work session. We also received, should I do this now or after?
No, you should enter it into the hearing record.
Great. So the third item that we received today is from Nicholas Bamonte from Bircham Moses, who is our town attorney. So folks, if you see that one, it has the yellow on the top of it. And it's a letter addressed to Chris Sullivan, and I was CC'd, that summarizes that the town attorney, which is Nick Bamonte, has reviewed our proposed cleanup of the regulations proposed by the commission, and that is the item that we have in front of us for the public hearing. And the town attorney writes that they understand, or that the majority, if not all, of the proposed revisions have been reviewed and approved by prior town council. And similarly, we, meaning our current town council, have reviewed and have no objections to the proposed revisions. Then the next paragraph says, that being said, we urge the TPZ to retain the existing zoning regulations 3.3 DD, Affordable Housing District. And there were no concerns with the remainder of the revisions. The town attorney writes again that although we understand that the newly proposed section 3.4 of an opportunity housing provides greater incentives to develop housing with even deeper levels of affordability restrictions in town compared to the existing section 3.3 DD, our attorneys recommend that retaining both regulatory options for potential developers. They go on to say, while it seems unlikely that developers would utilize the existing section 3.3 DD instead of the section 3.4 based on economic incentives, the town does not intend to dissuade any potential options for development of affordable housing in the town. So I just wanted to make sure that was in front of us from our town attorney. All right, so with those written items now part of our public hearing record, I'd like to then move to the public comment portion. And again, this is the continuation of our public hearing on our Town Planning and Zoning Commission zoning regulations of the town of Woodbridge and what we are calling the cleanup of the regulations that was proposed by our commission. So this public hearing is for the purpose of listening to your comments. Anyone who wishes to come and give public comment will have up to 3 minutes for your brief statements into the record. I note that the TPZ members will not be answering any questions you may raise, but your public statements and any written comments that were submitted to the town will become part of the public record for our consideration of this cleanup of our zoning regulations. As a reminder to everyone, off-the-record communication with a member of the commission on the merits of the application is prohibited. And I ask that anyone wishing to make public comment keep your comments brief and focused on the proposed cleanup of our zoning regulations, and try to avoid unreasonable repetition so we can all hear all of the concerns that you and your neighbors may have. So I have my phone with the 3-minute timer, and I do welcome anyone interested in giving public comment to come forward and sign in on the sign-in sheet and then state your name for the record, and we would welcome your public comment on our cleanup of our zoning regulations. I will ask a second time, would anyone like to come forward for public comment on the cleanup of our zoning regulations? Because this is now a tradition, I will ask a third time if anyone would like to come forward for public comment on the cleanup of our zoning regulations. Seeing none, thank you all, and now I'd like to entertain a motion to close our public hearing on the update and cleanup of our town zoning regulations.
So moved. Second. Jeff seconds.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion of the closure of the public hearing? Hearing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing? Oh, sorry.
Just for sake of understanding, Mr. Chairman, is this indicating that the changes that have been approved will go forward, or?
Nope, this is simply just to close the public hearing, yeah. We will then take up the comments that we've received over the course of now 3 meetings, is that right?
More than that.
Since
This is the
Three
July,
fourth.
No, public hearings.
Yeah, we started in July, so
Did we?
July,
this is
September,
the third.
October, November, 4th.
Okay, we will take up those, the things in the, in the record from our public hearing during our work session when we discuss our decision on the cleanup of the zoning regulations. So, hearing no other questions or comments, all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions?
I think I have to formally seat
Who do I?
Have to do what? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
You can formally seat Kathy.
yes, I would like to seat Kathy Hunter for this vote. Do I need to do that in a motion? No?
No.
Okay. You've been formally seated.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? I think we voted to close the public hearing unanimously. Okay, the public hearing portion is closed. Thank you very much, and we will take that up in our work session in a few moments. Next up on our agenda is the new business, and folks should have in front of them a letter from Attorney John Nuff on behalf of Angelo Malisi, seeking pursuant to Section 9.1 of our zoning regulations, a petition. It is a petition to amend our regulations as proposed in Exhibit A that was attached. So this is merely a presentation of this exhibit, and unless Attorney Nuff is here or anyone from his representatives here? No. So we've already met with Attorney Nuff in prior meetings, so this is simply what's in front of us is scheduling a public hearing on the proposed amendments. And the Attorney Nuff has requested that we schedule that public hearing at our next meeting on December 2nd, 2024, and I think that makes sense. Anyone else? Thoughts?
I'll make a motion to set this down for a public hearing on December 2nd, 2024.
And I'll second that. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on scheduling this for a public hearing on December 2nd, 2024? And I will seat Kathy if I have to. Do I have to do it every time?
No,
Okay,
you just
sorry.
do it at the beginning.
All in favor of scheduling a public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. So we will see them on December 2nd, 2024. Procedurally, this also requires referral over to SCROG, but I think
To
we,
two, yeah, it goes to SCROG and it goes to the Valley Council of Governments.
great. And we've done that, or we're doing that?
I've already done that,
Terrific.
assuming that you were going to schedule it here.
Great. All right. So now we go to our work session. And first up on our work session, Derek Iwaskowitz, thank you. If you'd like to come forward, please, we'd love to hear from you, an update on the work that's going on at 110 Luciani and get a sense of your timeline and schedule. So if you could just introduce yourself formally for,
Darius Iwaskowitz.
oh, is that microphone on?
It's red.
Yeah, maybe move it a little closer to you.
Yes.
Or the guys in the back, is
Are
it?
you picking me up?
No, they're not.
Hold on one sec.
Is it on now?
Now it is.
It's on now?
Nick, are we okay back there?
There's a fan going here too.
No, yeah, that's.
Right now?
Hello? Is that better?
There you go.
Yeah.
Darius Iwaskowitz, manager, Luciani Properties, 110 and 114. So we pulled a building permit on 110. We will be pulling the building permit on 114. We purchased a property in 76 Salem Road in Prospect, Connecticut. That was, let's see, we went to 2 meetings there already, so that was 60 days. So say 70 days ago, we purchased it, we got the application in. But the town of Prospect has an outside sanitarian. The sanitarian we got is in 2 days a week. And they have an outside engineer that finally just started reviewing the drawings for the town right prior to the last meeting. We could have not given the town an extension, they would have denied us, so it wouldn't have helped. The next meeting for them is November 18th. Hopefully, the members of the Wetlands Committee have walked the property in the 60 days that they've had a chance to do, but maybe they haven't. And depending if they walked it or not, they'll have all the corrected comments from the engineer, the sanitarian signed off on the septic system, and then they would allow us to start moving material to that site. So on that approval, if it were to be the 18th, but if it's not, it's another 30 days, we would be able to move everything within maybe 10 days, maybe sooner. We cannot work weekends. We've been following all the rules, maybe 5 minutes here or 5 minutes there. We keep the site clean. We have a porta potty there. And again, like I said, we pulled permits. We have the contractors lined up, and we will be pulling 114 once we know we're moving the material. And then we'll be working off the normal building permits, which, will be another process of actually constructing the house instead of just moving the material.
And just a quick question, and then I'm happy to open it up to the members for their questions. Just to be clear, so this property in Prospect is where you hope to move the
Yeah,
material?
definitely. We had other plans, but with the economy, interest rates went up, and a lot of projects just kind of, did not move forward. And then we were hoping with the flooding that, that didn't work out either. So what we did is we purchased the property so that all the material has a place to go.
Gotcha. And the permits that you're talking about, there are permits to move the material? Are those our town permits, or are they?
The permit we're talking about here is mass excavation, right? So that's the permit that you're calling me in on.
Yes.
So I think we renewed it, so we have another, I don't know, we're within the permit.
Yep.
We didn't violate anything. But we're here you guys called us, we're here, happy to answer any questions. And actually, we probably only worked not even 8 weeks. But it was never consecutive. So it's been 2 months of noise. And then we get complaints when there's no noise, but that's normal.
So I can open it up to commission members if they have questions.
When you say you get complaints with no noise, I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, I'm here, and we haven't been working there.
And the question that I would ask is there any intention for more excavation work, or are
Well,
you
yeah,
at a point?
so the mass excavation permit is to move that big pile of, as you break rock, it grows.
Mhm.
So, the rule is after 500 I think it's 500 yards, you don't need a permit. Anything over that, so we applied for the permit, and that's what we're doing. But under the general permit, we will still be jackhammering, we gotta do the water connection, we're bringing topsoil in and stuff like that. But really, we're constricted by this permit, the mass excavation permit, by different rules. So when we go to the regular permit, we'll be able to work 7 days a week like normal. And so the construction will continue until the house gets a CO.
And again, just for clarity, the excavation permit is the one that we've granted you that you're still operating under. The other permit is the building permit that once you get to the point where you're actually constructing the houses, that's the one that you're referring to.
Yeah,
when
so
you work.
110 actually is, we're ready to go. Once we move, we'll be pouring the footings and starting an inspection process. So that will be off the regular building permit, right? But that's why we extended, because we have to move the material. Other towns like Prospect, it's like when you apply for the house, there's no need for a special permit, because they know we gotta bring 8,000 yards or whatever fill there because of the topography of the house. Here, this town, I believe, is different, that you have to do the mass excavation. You don't get it granted with a general permit.
And just to be clear, you're waiting on Prospect to have a site to bring the material to. Once you bring the material that you've already sort of broken up and brought down, is there additional hammering excavation that you're going to do that you couldn't do because you've basically got a big pile in the way?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, we have to move it all, right? And then we're gonna have to, the footings have to go a little deeper, right? And then the water connection is 42 inches below the frost line, and that's all rock all the way to the road. And then the sewer connection over there, it's about 14 feet deep or 12. So, we're gonna be trenching the sewer lines to the house and the water connection. The power is gonna be overhead, and we'll use probably propane, or we'll go all electric with solar panels. Probably we're gonna do that, because, go through the expense of putting the gas line in, or even propane.
But do you anticipate doing any more excavation on the back or the cliff
I
area?
mean, when we move the material out, we might clean up some more, but I believe that we're far enough back. On 114, we're probably gonna have to go, you'll see, we're gonna leave like a shelf, and the foundation goes into the hill. So the back is kinda set, so there's less hammering there. And then we leave about 4 feet where we gotta bring dirt so that the soil could grow, because you can't if you put 3 inches of soil on top of this table, it'll burn, because it's gonna heat up the underneath. So we gotta bring in a little cover, so that the grass will grow.
So the excavation permit expires when? What is the date of that?
May 1st.
So it's May 1st, right? So do you feel that you'll have the excavation work done by May 1st? Or do you think that you're gonna have to come back and get an extension, or?
No, I mean,
will it be done?
but
Hold on,
Yeah, yeah.
So do you feel it'll be done by May 1st, the excavation?
Well, again, under the new permit, I have as long as I want to excavate. This is, the mass excavation is moving the excess fill. So that's what we're doing. So the construction, that's only the first portion. It's like you see what they're doing down below on the other houses. They brought the big machines in, they pushed the dirt all over the place. That's only the phase one. After they dig their pond, then they start digging the individual units, right? So I don't think they maybe they did have a mass excavation.
They did.
So anyways, they work all the time. I think they work weekends even. But our stipulation is different. And if we worked weekends, so the problem we had too is you can't get trucks during the week when the weather's good. They're all trucking asphalt. So now we have the advantage, the asphalt plant's gonna close pretty soon when it's cold. And so we'll get as many trucks as we want during the week. If we had access to trucks over the weekend, we probably would have moved all the material by now. But since the stipulation is on, you can't work on the weekend, it precludes a lot of that, homeowners that want material.
But where would you have moved it? This is way above my pay grade, but you said you had to buy land in Prospect to move the materials.
Yeah.
So if you had the trucks, where would you move it if you didn't have the Prospect property?
So on the weekend, say you have a house that has a sloped backyard. So all weekend, everybody that has those situations would call somebody like us, and we could truck on the weekend. But during the week, we have no access to truck. Right? And-
Truck it where, though, before you get the zoning approval in Prospect?
No, I'm
to
saying
do so?
Many of my neighbors that I hear that are complaining, believe it or not, do a lot of work without permits. And even connect, one of them, I believe, connected illegally into the storm drain system, right? And I tried to make complaints, but we're doing everything by the permit, so we're handicapped, right?
Yeah, but-
Their decks are overbuilt, they
But my
remodel the
my only
houses without
question
permits.
is,
And none of them are here.
If you had,
except to
if you
complain.
had trucks this coming weekend, you wouldn't be able to move the fill
I
yet,
can't because
you don't have the approval in
the condition,
Prospect
the
yet.
condition of this committee is we could not all this time do anything on the weekend.
I'm saying,
And so if we had-
hypothetically, if you were able to work on the weekends and you're not, but if you had a truck available tomorrow, let's say tomorrow, on a Tuesday, you couldn't yet bring it to Prospect because you don't have the approval from the town of Prospect to use that property to dump this fill.
Yeah, that's correct. And the same thing, it's not one truck, it's 10 to 20 trucks. Because,
But you don't even have approval to dump one load.
yeah, but on the weekend, right, there's people that would take it, but they cannot send 10, 20 trucks during the week. It's just,
So are you-
it's part of our business.
Are
I mean,
you
it's
saying
just
that
the
if
reality.
you could work on the weekend, someone would take the excess material and they would dispose of it somewhere else? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because we're giving it to them for free. So, that materials could be worth to somebody $100,000 to $200,000, depending what application they're using it on, right? But because of the condition that we cannot work on the weekend, we were not able to get rid of it easily, because that's the only time that happens, is on the weekends.
I mean, to clarify, you could pay to have a truck. I mean, part of this availability of trucking, you could sure come up with a number to pay a truck during the week.
But that's not my business plan.
Right, so we say we wait.
And hence, we bought a lot that needs filled, and we're gonna make an improvement. And we're, same thing, working with the town, and it's their rules, so.
So how long do you think, if I was a resident, I would just wanna know, what's my worst case scenario? When do you think all the excavating will be done?
Again, whatever the permit allows me to do, this permit I wanna complete. So if we get the okay to truck to Prospect, say it's 2 weeks of steady trucking, and then I go to the regular permit, which again, depending on my business needs, I will do my work accordingly. And it could be fast, and it could be slow, and it depends on the weather. But again, we're doing everything by the rules.
I totally I'm just trying to get worst case scenario. Like if I was living next door to your property, I would just want you to tell me, are we looking at, I have no idea. Are you saying is it gonna be 2 months or 10 months or 2 years? Worst case?
Worst case scenario, I get hit by a car when I leave here,
I mean,
and then leave you talking to somebody else. That's
I mean,
worst case.
Okay. It's
But
legit-
I'm being honest.
No,
I
you're
just,
not,
I
actually.
run a business to make money. I buy lots that are difficult. That's what I do for a living. Everywhere I go, I have neighbors like this. These neighbors in particular, though, are all breaking your zoning rules
Okay,
right
that
now.
is not the reason we've brought you in here
Well,
today.
then,
so I don't-
I'm just saying this.
I mean-
I'm under a permit, and I'm working in accordance.
And a permit
with
from
the
us
law.
that expires on what date in May?
Yeah, so we will,
What, on what
we
date?
will be done.
You'll be done by that date.
With this permit, but the other permit is good for 2 years, I think, right? I think 2 years. Building permits.
The non-mass excavation
Okay.
permit?
Chris, the new permit, we have the permit now, then the new one.
Okay, there's two-
Does he have to
there's-
have this stuff taken off by the end of the first permit?
The work under the excavation permit, which was to create the lot so that it was buildable, not including making the house or the pipes to the house. Let me finish. That has to be done by May 1st. He said there might be a little bit of cleanup work after they remove the material that's there right now, that's stockpiled towards the rear
Yeah, because
where-
until you move the material, you can't get to it, right?
And
But
then-
while we're trucking, we'll be able to clean that out and take it with the rest.
And then when that's completed, then that's the end to your excavation permit. Then the building permit kicks in.
Understood.
Let me finish.
Okay.
With the building permit, he's going to need to create the trenches for the water and the sewer line and the foundation. So there will be a form of excavation work, but that work will be under the building permit, not the excavation permit. So when you're asking him, is the excavation work gonna finish by May 1st? The excavation work is the mass removal of the material. It should not include digging for the trenches for the sewer line, the water line, or the foundation, because that's part of the building permit.
I understand, but the mass amount of rock that's there, that has to be gone by May 1st.
Correct. And
Okay,
that's
it,
what
that's what I
he's,
was looking for. I didn't
Yeah,
say it well.
well-
That's not me. But mass of the rock has to be gone by May 1st, and it will be, right?
It has to be.
On the
Okay.
second permit you're operating under, right, which is minor excavation,
no,
It's major
no.
because it's all solid rock, so I'm still gonna
No.
be hammering.
that's what I want. to
Hammering is
understand.
excavation.
Okay.
So,
Otherwise, we could have blasted.
I
it.
under- I
That's
understand
another
now.
problem.
so you've got an excavation
Yeah.
permit, and then you've got a building permit.
Yeah.
And under any building permit, you have to create the foundation, you have to dig trenches for whatever it may be, or install a septic. That falls under the building permit.
What's the time frame on that, Chris?
A building permit is valid for, you
That's
have
what
to
you mentioned,
start
whatever.
work within 6 months. And then as long as you're working on it, it takes as long as
Well,
takes you to finish it.
Our intent is to do it rapidly. Our biggest problem is we couldn't work weekends. We cured the problem by just buying a lot ourselves. It'll justify us paying to move it, and we're done. And then we'll build the houses as fast as possible, unless World War III starts, the economy, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why we may stop, you know what I mean? And again, our intent is to go as fast as we can, and that's how we make money.
So a building permit is valid as long as they're working under the building permit. If they stop work, I mean, typically, it's very unusual that the building inspector would revoke a building permit, because sometimes things happen. I mean, when COVID happened, we had permits that stayed dormant for a while because they couldn't get materials and whatnot. I don't think we're in that situation right now. But, I mean, typically, it takes probably a year or so to finish under a building permit, from start to finish.
Yeah, about 8 months, a year, depends on the weather. Like if the wind, like the weather like now, we build right through the winter. If 3 feet of snow and slush and rain, you know, it all
hard.
depends.
From my perspective, what's important is that the neighbors have been, the reason they're complaining is, the complaints that I've received myself are specific to the extended period of time that there's been the excavation type noise, particularly the digging, or the breaking up of the stones and things of that nature. So, and it's more that there hasn't been any indication as to any limitation related to that. So it's been going on already for quite some time, and they seem to have a concern in terms of how much longer will it go on. So it's understanding, nobody's asking that you take a hit from a business perspective, and generally speaking, from my perspective, from a businessman's perspective, it would be the sooner I can get it done, the sooner I can make some money. So generally, sooner is better. And the intent is to try to get this done from a noise perspective
Yeah.
as quickly as possible, recognizing what you need to do.
So like I said, I know all the neighbors. I like them, believe it or not, you know? Noise-wise, we only work for 2 months out of this whole time. 2 months. That's not unreasonable, right? Because the hammer, right, I pay for it. I know how many days. Every time that thing starts, I get a bill, right? So it's 2 months.
I can tell you they've
When
been,
I'm there on the weekends checking the job, I hear saws at 7, so it's very, to me, and I live in town, you know, I've been here a long time. So it's frustrating to me that we do things the right way. And knowingly, and the neighbors do know, because I talked to them and I says, look, I pointed everything that they're doing, they're fine when they're breaking the law. I am following the rules and being courteous And like you said, I'm a businessman, and we're not doing anything because we're losing money. I gotta pay taxes, there's all sorts of extra costs. So I agree, and we're gonna try to do it as fast as we can, but there's still gonna be noise. It's just the nature of the job.
And Darius, I need to mention that. I've been there, and I've heard the noise, particularly when you're doing the breaking up of the rock. That's much different than sawing and or, a leaf blower or something along those, because that happens in every
But we
neighborhood.
start at the time, 8 o'clock, and we're done by 5 o'clock.
Understood. But having been there for 10 minutes, I can understand why it might be a little bit of a concern or on the part of the neighbors. So understand that the issue here is the noise.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that it has been going on, I think, 2 months, but that 2 months might be 60 days over a longer period of time.
The last time we had the machine on was 2 months ago.
Okay.
So it's strange that we get called in when there's been no noise for 2 months.
I can't
I'm happy.
comment. I
I'm here all
understand
the
that.
time.
I
I'm here all
understand.
the time, and I'll answer
Yeah, we may
all the
invite you to
questions.
come here monthly to give us updates if you.
But again, the zoning commission should understand the process of construction.
Okay, but you've also now thrown a wild card at us that if you could only work on weekends, you'd have these wonderful people who would take
Yeah,
your
but we
stuff
would
for
have been
free.
done. How many
Right,
days?
so why didn't you actually tell us that months ago?
Because you guys set the stipulations, and I'm abiding by it. Right?
You could have alerted to us
Right, I'm being
to
good
the
about-
business. No, you could have alerted us to your business reality, and we could have made an
The
adjustment.
the
if that would-
reality, as I mentioned it at the
Because
beginning,
it
and you
makes
weren't
me
here when I
believe
first,
about this.
started, I said it would be
Hey,
good.
excuse me,
Yes,
one at a time, and it's me.
yes, go ahead.
You could have come to us if you had a business concern that was preventing you from removing the material in a timely fashion, and we might have actually found a way to accommodate that activity. Instead, you now give us what is presented to us as this, to me, a figment of your ability to suddenly find on weekends folks who are willing to take your 10 or 20 trucks. Come to us with actual people who can actually take it away, and we'll accommodate it and get it off your property. Real stuff, not you coming here complaining about that. It's insulting, frankly. So
I'm
you'll
sorry
come
for
back
this.
next month and insult me again.
Well, again, I have attorneys too, and this is getting borderline harassment, because tell me what rule I broke. Tell
I'm
me
not
one.
telling you that you're
Well,
breaking any
You're
rules.
insulting me, and you should know better. You should know at least the minimum of how a house is built. You are ruling on this stuff, okay? So I apologize if you're insulted, but why am I here?
Because
No, but what rule did I break?
there were concerns with
No,
noise
I don't mind
ordinances and things of that
communicating with
nature.
everybody, and you could have called me into your office and we could have this conversation. I talked to all these people here. They know what the reality is.
Well, no, I'm just answering your
No, but I'm
question.
saying, you could even bring them up and have them talk, and I talk nice to them.
We have heard
Yeah.
from the constituents, we
Yeah.
brought you in, and now we've heard that there is apparently an ability of you to remove the material in a faster fashion. Can you come to us with that proposal?
That's not none of your business how fast I move it or not. It's not. All right, and I'm
Okay.
compliant
Then-
within the
then fine.
regulations,
We'll
and
see
we're
you
gonna
at-
move it
by
by
May.
May 1st. I talk to the neighbors all the time. Listen, the one that just talked is the one I'm gonna make a formal complaint about, how she illegally tied into
We're
your
done.
city
We're done.
waterway
This is
system.
not the subject of our discussion.
Well, this is a zoning board. This is where you make complaints about that kind of activity, isn't it?
No,
No?
you can make a complaint to the zoning enforcement officer.
Okay, so, again, what violation am I here for?
You have actually done a wonderful job educating us on what is going on at the
I
facility,
know, but I'm
which was.
asking specifically,
No,
why am I coming back next month? What violation am I here for? So I
Because
need
I would
to
like
know.
to have monthly updates on the status of
That's
your.
not part of the approval process. So again, I just wanna, I'll finish. We're gonna do the work as fast as we can, and, you know, I don't understand what I have not answered for you.
No, you've answered a lot today, and I would like you to come back next month and answer us, and just give us, it could be as short as a 2-minute update on the status of your removal.
Again, why am I here?
Specifically
Because you
I'm
have a
sorry.
permit in front of us.
Refer to, where in the permit are you referring to? You said a noise complaint. There's been no noise
I did not say
for-
a noise complaint.
Then why are we
You
here?
Because you are subject to a permit from this commission. And I believe the commission can ask you about the status of your performance under that permit. Seriously.
And I've answered it.
Right, so you're done. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
We're not actually doing additional public. This is only, I'm sorry, but we only invited him to come and give us an update, which he has done. And that's the, next month, we can receive if you have additional comments or letters, you should submit them.
Because there's two neighbors, and it's good news, they're both expecting babies, one in November, one in April. And we don't wanna hear all that noise.
Unfortunately, we have not, Chris, I'm sort of looking to you for sort of process here, which I know is dangerous, but we would welcome continued submissions or comments from the neighbors to give us updates on the,
Could we make an appointment and talk next month, or should we just put it in a letter?
If they put it in a letter, then you all get it.
yeah,
and
I think a letter is the more formal way to
then
do
there's
this.
a record.
Prefer it in a letter?
I believe so, yes.
All right. But, you know, we were concerned about the toilets sticking out and everything.
It's required by the building permit. It will stay there during the duration of having the building permit. So you may be having it there for another year because the building inspector wants a portalet on every site that's having a house under construction, so there is a place for the workers to go. So
I can
that,
understand that,
so that's why it sits there.
but maybe it could cover it up a little.
They are never covered up.
It just doesn't look good, you should take a ride back,
I see them all over town, Rosalie.
not the sites that we have. But it's your commission, it's how you, but we'll put it in a letter.
Please do. Yep, I think we're going, I don't know, unless commission members have additional discussion.
No further comment at this time.
No, sir.
All right. Next up on our agenda is the discussion of our Town Planning Zoning Commission regulation update and our cleanup of our regulations. So, Yoni, for your information, you should have received both 2 written comments that came in via email, which are also printed out, but an additional comment from our town attorney, which advised us in summary that they had no objections to the proposed revisions, but did urge and suggest that the Planning and Zoning Commission should actually retain its existing affordable housing district regulations under 3.3 DD and simply have the section 3.4 opportunity housing being in addition. So we're not deleting anything, even though it's unlikely that folks would choose the old path when there's the new path, but just so that we retain all paths or opportunities for housing.
Understood.
Yoni, since you weren't here for the public hearing, we should just also note for your behalf that there was no public comment in terms of oral comment. So you haven't missed
That's right.
anything
Oh,
that
yeah,
way.
so you didn't actually miss any.
Right. I reviewed the 2 documents that you submitted to members of the commission at the time.
Great. So I think I'll formally make a motion to approve our cleanup of our regulations proposed by the commission with the edit to retain the existing zoning regulation 3.3 DD on affordable housing district.
Second.
Moved and second. And now we're open to discussion on the cleanup of our zoning regulations.
I should just note for you that when you finalize your vote, that you need to set an this is, yeah, an
Adoption,
effective date.
effective date.
We have to stop and think adoption versus effective.
How many days, what's the minimum number of,
I have to post a legal notice, and I have to get it sent to the Council of Governments, and I have to post it with the town clerk.
is that 60 days?
No,
30 days?
give me the end of the month and we'll be fine.
Like a December 1
Yeah,
start date?
December 1.
Okay. Comments, suggestions, changes?
You are re-including section 33DD basically, right? So
Yes.
I heard some of that, but I.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
so just-
that's now re-included.
Yes,
right?
it was
Okay.
in our proposed deleted,
Understood.
but we are undoing that deletion and keeping it
I support that.
kind of belts and suspenders.
Yes, okay, yeah, so that's fine.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, because I did subsequently thought that that should stay in there because, even though I initially thought that that was made obsolete, when certain things came up, like how would, certain, like the Warner development, for example, wouldn't have fit under opportunity housing if not this regulation being in there, and that this regulation does provide more flexibility. Not that it provides flexibility, it's not really very usable, but it does allow it to be anywhere throughout Woodbridge, as opposed opportunity housing only restricts it to certain zones. But yes, it probably would be unlikely that we use it. The only comments I have reading the two comments is that, both comments talked about that this went beyond cleanup, that there was more substance involved. And one of the comments was clearly confused about why we introduced certain language from Public Act 21-29 in the introduction. And I could see perhaps why there is confusion, because it's not really referenced that these are, the introduction reflects important zoning changes that were made in the Zoning Enabling Act that gives us authorization to zone for our towns. So I think, folks are like, well, why are we putting those purposes in there without any backup? And I think it should be clear that it's for us to be compliant with the new Zoning Enabling Act. So I'm just wondering if we could, in the introduction, reference that so folks do understand that that is why we are doing this. This is not something we came up with. This is language that is now in the Zoning Enabling Act that requires us to do this.
So it's a point well taken, and I do usually use a shorthand of the zoning cleanup, but when I do speak more sort of fully about it, it is a zoning cleanup and making sure our zoning rules conform with the latest of the general statutes that apply to zoning commissions. And that is where my one little concern is, that I think we actually tried in a lot of places to remove specific statutory reference out of fear that sometimes they get updated, that we would potentially run into having a reference that then is changed. So I think our opening is always that this is in conformance with the general statutes. But I'm hearing that, is there a way to highlight that part of this was also specifically in response to that statutory provision, Public Act 2129?
Right. And I think it just serves as an educational process for, for residents to understand this is why we made these changes.
So my only
Can I
question,
speak? I just spoke over you.
I'm sorry, Jeff. My only question with respect to that is, should we add any language to the introduction section? Would that be a change such that we would have to start all over again with the public hearing process, Chris?
I'm so glad I get to play town council. Part of the submission that you got tonight was two submissions. So the chairman had said that you were gonna include this as part of your discussion this evening. I don't have the big book in front of me, so I'm not too sure where in the introduction this was.
going old school. I was pulling up my computer.
Yeah, see, I don't have a laptop, so, okay. So, this is our introduction,
It's the version I have.
yeah, and it's just adding in affirmatively further the purposes. It furthers the purposes of the Federal Fair Housing Act. It doesn't say that it's totally compliant, it says it's furthering it. So, playing devil's advocate, and I am not an attorney, nor do I play one.
That's my question, if we were to specify that it was an effort to comply with a particular Connecticut state statute or Connecticut state statutes in general, would that sort of change
No,
require a reposting and a
these are your regs, you're accepting comments from the public, and you can amend it as long as it's not a substantive change. If it was a substantive change, then it should go back through a public hearing.
So the point being that the introduction is not substance in
It's
terms
not.
of a regulation.
It's not, it's an introduction, it's not a regulation per se.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I mean, I'm not comfortable being,
Yeah, no,
providing
just
legal advice, but
bouncing it off
common
you.
sense wise,
No, and in essence, we are doing like we would in any public hearing. We've received comments from the public, whether oral or written. A comment from the public, or a couple of them, have sort of highlighted the role of this new public act, which we don't explicitly reference in our introduction, and potentially we could, as a reasonable response to the public input that came in. Because I'm looking at it, and there's the sort of bottom of that introduction that says something to the effect of, these regulations are intended to be a dynamic document, not a static document. It's anticipated that these regulations will be regularly reviewed and updated as necessary to anticipate and reflect the ever-changing needs of the community and guide land use activities in Woodbridge in ways that will maintain and protect public health, safety, and welfare. To me, that's probably close to a place that you could either add there or, elsewhere, that in that sort of, it'll be updated, whether by updates to our general statutes, and maybe reflecting the needs. Yeah.
This was supposed to be a relatively quick process involving a few changes, including some missing page numbers, correct graphs, clarifying comments, getting rid of redundant words, misspellings. When a graph was on page 10 and it was supposed to be on page 12, this was supposed to be a relatively quick process, and it did turn out to be a little bit longer. Kathy, there could be things that we're missing, as any time can happen. Legislation passes, certain things change. But I think through the first time here, I think we should be fine with what we've done so far. That's my recommendation. I think we tried to stay away from policy and do more of how it looked, and held together and fixing some things like that, making it simpler. Certainly it needs to be updated through time, but I wouldn't suggest, as the letter does here, to table the whole thing again. I mean, I think we've done a lot of.
I'm not suggesting
The letter,
tabling.
not you, but the letter did, but tabling the process. So I think we should finish up. I think we should say, here we are, it's done, and then as other needs arise, it's a living document, so we'll adapt it again. That's my 2 cents.
Perhaps it's just, with that resolution, is that we have to, now that we have these different areas from the Zoning Enabling Act incorporated in here, we have to make sure we are in fact compliant with what it's saying, because right now, in terms of the limitations that we have on multifamily housing, it's still in a very, very limited area in Woodbridge by special exception. So that's not exactly promoting housing choice.
Well, we can have an attorney come and, work us through it. It's a long document, that particular public act is quite lengthy, it's like 80 pages long or something.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying,
You know, so
we have this in here, so, with us, approving, these changes, we should also, make sure that, we work to make sure these zoning regulations do in fact, are compliant with the zoning enabling act.
They're discussing their motions.
So I hear that, though back with Jeff, those are things that I think we can and should take up, but not in this context of the majority of this effort was simply to fix typos, do those sorts of things that made the old regs unworkable, and we've been highlighted to us by people trying to use our regs. And to the extent that there was legislation that had passed in this time that required the changing and deleting of certain words, to make those changes and deletions as advised by our consultant and reviewed by our town attorneys, to just bring that sort of word choices and a few other things that were stricken from the zoning enabling statute. I did actually find, though, that we have in 1.0 is our enacting clause, which does say we're acting under the authority of Chapter 124, Section 8-3, which necessarily includes all the amendments to 124-3. So I'm probably more on the side of, we've gotten this far, let's get it across the finish line, and then once we have a working document, there are plenty of things that'll come out of our plan of conservation development process, things that.
Yeah, maybe that's a good segue, in terms of that, of educating the public, because I really think that the public should be educated on what the zoning enabling act did in changing our regulations, and how that it is now an obligation that we create, housing choice, multifamily housing that addresses the needs of low-income families and households, and even to plan on a end zone on a regional basis. Those are really important components of this new act. So maybe that is something we should be incorporating in our POCD process, because that's going to inform future land use.
And that is a full discussion.
That's another
in that
discussion.
Yes,
process,
okay,
yeah.
I just want to make that, these are just points I wanted to bring up,
No, appreciate it.
in light of the two comments.
Paul?
Rob, can you, I
You're
don't
not
remember
ex
this
officio.
part of it, and I probably missed a meeting or two or
No,
three.
no, motion.
On the introduction page, the 3 paragraphs that were highlighted to delete, was that from the commission or was that from the consultant? And then the follow-up is, what was the reason for removing these?
That was the first discussion that you guys had.
Yeah.
'Cause that's a follow-up from, I think, one of the comments we got today. Do you,
Yeah, I think there was a note from our consultant that those paragraphs now conflict with that statute. And
there's
that led to
also-
us deleting those paragraphs.
And there certainly was discussion about it at the time that we made those deletions, and those would be reflected in
The minutes of those.
the recordings.
Of the recordings.
In the
of those
recordings, yeah.
Right, and you might have also discussed, the idea of fiscal zoning not being able to be upheld in court.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the suggestions from council, our consultant documented, they were focused that these are inconsistent with the new act. Other questions or comments?
I was gonna say that in regard to the comments submitted by Mr. Rosasco, I think the same answer would actually apply to a lot of the questions that he raised in his letter, which is that if you watch the numerous hearings in which we discussed a lot of these changes and the need for them, I think that it probably answers a lot of the questions that he raises in his letter. some of what he raises, additional things that he raises regarding policy and such, you know, I don't really have a response to, but the questions that he has about very specific, you know, points of it is there.
Yep. You know, this was the fruit of our year-long effort to.
Year-long plus.
Year-long plus. I was
Yeah,
being,
right.
yeah, to do that, and I do believe you are correct that most, if not all, of the comments raised in this submission from today were addressed throughout that cleanup process.
And we should just note for the record that anyone is welcome to go on to YouTube and go on to the TV channel 79, and they can see a catalog of your meetings and every other board and commission of this town that's recorded, and go back and see them.
Additional questions, reactions, comments? All right, hearing none, all in favor of approving the cleanup and of our zoning regulations with that retention of that one section 3.3
3.3 DD.
Thank you. And setting a date of December 1 as an effective date? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you all.
Thank you.
That's a sigh of
Now
relief.
you will have a set of regs that's searchable and in one document. Wow.
Terrific. Okay.
I did want to just make one comment, Mr. Chairman, if I could. Now
Sure.
that the motion is completed, I think it went the way I had. So I did attend a number of your meetings early on in when I came on board, and you always left an hour at the end of the meeting or sometime for you to go over these individual Scrivener type errors and things of that nature. So I just wanted to make note particularly of the comment that there seems to be two parts of this. One, finishing what you started, as you said, which you folks just did, thank you. But there is still a second part, which is obviously if there are changes to be made, you can now go ahead and do that. I just felt like it was important to mention the fact that this was always a two separate thing. Your initial public hearing was not open to make zoning changes. It was to correct zoning errors and omissions and things of that nature in the text that was already existing. Anything that happens forthcoming, anything that happens from now on could be and may be zoning changes, and that's open to be done, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, no, that is correct. And that was also part of the goal, to get this document to the point where it was intelligible, functional, useful for continued sort of review and updating. And we knew that we also had the plan of conservation development process going. That would be another place where we would get potential for changes. We just set a public hearing for another potential change for our regs. So we are going to go about our standard business, which is to always look for, opportunities to improve what we have where it makes sense.
Thank you.
And the big thing is, it's gonna be one document.
Yes, I know. And logistically and
Logistically,
mechanically
that's
will be
just-
easier to do as well.
Much easier.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, any updates from the Regional Planning Commission, SCROG?
Yes, sir. First of all, let me say that there is an agenda produced prior to every one of these monthly meetings that I'd be happy to circulate among this commission if people would like to have more detail than what I give here, so just let me know. So that said, the last meeting was on October 10th. Yours truly had to chair it again because the chairman was not there. And there were action items from the town of Orange. And the town of Orange sought to modify the zoning board of appeals regulations to align with the revised statute for approval of gas stations. Formerly, it required the approval of or currently the approval of the zoning board of appeals, and they want to change it so that the zoning enforcement officer can approve gas stations, automotive repairs, and dealerships, rather than going to the zoning board of appeals. There was also a proposed zoning text amendment from the city of Derby. And the proposed zoning text would amend the current zoning regulations around cannabis locations and the number of allowed locations. Biggest change is adding a stipulation that only one licensed establishment is allowed in the city at any one time. By the way, with respect to the first one I mentioned and that one, there were no findings of any adverse intermunicipal consequences or bad things happening to the Long Island Sound. Town of North Branford, there was a proposed zoning amendment whereby they sought to repeal their year-long moratorium on cannabis permits and sittings. Existing moratorium was put in place on October 21st, 2023, and was set to expire, so it already expired on October 21, 2024. So they repealed the moratorium, meaning that they have no regulations around cannabis at this time. And finally, also found to have no negative intermunicipal impact. And finally, the town of North Branford also, or town of Branford, excuse me, from the Stony Creek Association requesting that the town of Branford amend the Stony Creek Village District regulations to reduce the floor area sizes needed for a special permit and requirement for site plan review. Your current regulations required such that any dwelling in the district under 3,500 square feet needs a special permit, and any single or two-family dwelling between 3,500 and 5,000 square feet requires a site plan review. Proposed regulations would lower this threshold for these two items to 2,000 square feet and 2,001 square feet respectively. Also, no negative intermunicipal impact was found, nor harm to the environment of the Long Island Sound. Next meeting is next week, I believe.
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions for Andrew? And I'll note that it seems like you're getting a lot of business on cannabis retail, or it seems that that's an issue that a lot of towns are. Have you seen a trend emerge, or?
I think it was a little hotter topic last year than it was now. So, yeah, these two tweaks came up. The most interesting is that
Derby only wants one.
Derby only wants one, and North Branford did away with its moratorium and now has nothing. So anybody can go any place they want within the commercial districts
Of North Branford.
of North
There you
Branford.
go. I was gonna say that if you think to share with us the agenda. you
Be
mentioned
happy
it-
to.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Yeah, I'll do that going forward. It's easy enough to.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to mention also that I've spoken to some brokers, commercial brokers, and we have a lot of empty space in our business district. And in conversation only, no one's indicated there's any inclination or intent, but cannabis in Woodbridge was brought up in conversation.
And we have our regulations in place.
We have had some people who have called about it, but it was always within an area where, because of your location requirements for the cannabis section, it wasn't gonna work.
Gotcha. Okay. Next up, Kathy, a housing committee report.
Sure, well, our prime task now is really developing input into the POCD. We did review the current plan, and we looked at some of the strategies in the old plan that are still relevant today, like creating options for Woodbridge's youngest and oldest families, you know, those starting out, and those in providing the ability for longtime residents to stay in town. Also, in our current POCD, they talked about using the country club for housing to take advantage of the site's unique access to public water, sewer, and transportation infrastructure. And I just wanted to point out that in 2015, the Woodbridge affordable housing stock that counted towards the affordable housing land use appeal list was at 1.1%, so it pretty much has been unchanged. So hopefully, in this next POCD, we're gonna be able to move on that affordability percentage. So our next meeting is Wednesday, so our goal is to provide information to Chris by the end of the month, so we could you know, use that for consideration for this commission for input into the POCD.
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions for Kathy?
Related to that, perhaps, did we settle on the POCD meeting for November?
I was gonna get to that.
Oh, did I get ahead of you, Mr. Chairman? I'm
It's
sorry.
okay. But we will,
It's
we
coming
will,
up.
yeah,
I'm
we
just so
will,
excited about it that I wanted to make sure
we will definitely schedule that special meeting before we're done.
all right.
Any other questions for Kathy? No. Chris, any updates as you're in your role as zoning enforcement officer?
I'm just running around collecting signs that are not political signs, that are not supposed to be out there.
Non-political signs.
Non-political signs.
Advertising
that-
signs. Nothing
And
to
I
do
did-
with, say, frozen desserts, but other.
No frozen desserts, no. Roof washing and Christmas light stringing, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But I did-
Accessory,
I did
accessory
have
dwelling
a-
units? Any update on accessory dwelling units?
No, we don't have a new one. People call about them all the time, so I push it. I talk about it. What was I gonna say? I don't know. It just disappeared, sorry.
So I think now is a good time before we approve our minutes. I was going to ask, I think Chris has asked us all whether Tuesday, the 19th at 6:30 PM here
Yeah,
works for folks for a special meeting with our consultants
Yep.
to go over the documents that Chris has shared, which are a summary of the open house.
and then he's gonna be, they are working on starting to draft, a vision statement, so at that meeting, he'll have that for you to also look at, which is a critical part of doing working towards the plan. And Mika, as always, has been extremely helpful. He did send out an email to boards and commissions reminding them that they are welcome and encouraged to forward goals. Look at the existing POCD, see what goals are in there, or action steps, are they still valid, or are they being done? And then get those in as soon as they can, so. I have had a couple commissions, contact people from commissions call about that.
Sorry, I did have a question on the timing of that, because it looks like he was coming up with a, proposed vision statement for like the middle of November. I mean, for the November 19th meeting.
Mhm.
But then the input from commissions and committees wasn't due until the end of
That's
December.
the input is more for goals and steps that way. the vision statement is more of a broader statement versus what would come in from boards and commissions would be action steps and goals that would be part of the plan itself. So you have vision statement, which is an overlay, but then you have specific goals and actions that want to be achieved. And that's where the input, at least that's my understanding, where the
Right.
input would come in from the boards and commissions.
And maybe it's just a broad vision statement, but I just thought that the input from the committee and commissions would also help
This is the
inform.
way he said that they're gonna do it, or they do it, so I'm just the conduit for gathering information and getting it to them.
And the vision statement is just a draft.
It's a
that-
draft,
Correct.
and you're gonna review it, and you can add, subtract, whatever to it, because it's your vision statement. So,
Yeah, so first on the timing, does the Tuesday the 19th work for the majority of folks? Okay, because I think we need to keep
we need to
that
keep
date
going.
and keep them moving forward on that. So that's a yes to that,
Okay.
where we will cover both the summary of the open house, get an introduction to the vision statement, recognizing that that's going to be a draft
you're
and a
gonna-
working
it's a
document.
draft, yeah.
Yeah.
And then once that's done, then there'll be at the sometime towards the beginning of January, then there'll be that second workshop to invite the public to, and then there'll also be the roundtable discussion, which is limited in time to probably 15 minutes, no more than a half hour, depending on how many boards and commissions they identify that they want to talk to, as well as staff people. And so that'll occur in one day, and that'll help to pinpoint action steps and things. So,
I'm sorry, that was that scheduled yet, or
No.
that's to be scheduled?
No, that's for
it'll
January.
be in January,
Yeah.
because they recognize that the holidays in December makes it tough.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay.
But they're still on target for getting everything that needs to be done in a timely fashion. So we get it off to the two councils of governments because they need a 65-day period to review it. And then you have your hearing, and before the hearing, you would make any adjustments if you needed to, based on the input that you get from the council of governments.
And you'll notice that special meeting, but it's just a special meeting for a work session for us?
For here, yeah.
Yeah.
It would just be a special meeting for you. It's a public meeting, but for you to discuss with SLR, going over
Yep.
the things that you already mentioned.
Great. Okay, anything else on that topic? Oh, we have then last two sets of minutes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Sorry, there was additional, I was waiting to make comment, and there's, Deputy Selectman is here to make a comment in regard to any other business before you really set the next item,
Oh, sure. Other business.
so. Steve Munna?
See, I thought you just were here to sort of enjoy a Monday night with your planning and zoning.
Always
folks.
fun to be here. So my name's Steve Munno. I'm here in my capacity as Deputy First Selectman. And I think it seems maybe you don't have the information before you that we're here to discuss, but I know Mika's had some communication with Chris regarding a property at 1875 Litchfield Turnpike. And I'm here before you to request, and I don't know that we can do this tonight, but to alert you to a pending request for an endorsement of a grant application, which we are looking for. The town is interested in purchasing this property, 1875 Litchfield Turnpike, which is up for sale. Now, we're not asking for an 824 at this stage. We're at the beginning stages of potentially applying to a grant through DEEP. It's the Open Space and Watershed Land Acquisition Grant Program. And part of this application requires an endorsement from the local planning and zoning board as well as the Conservation Commission. And there also must be an advisory report from the appropriate regional planning agency. So I'll note, one, this property just came up for sale. We are interested because of its location on Litchfield Turnpike, adjacent to some protected state land and Woodbridge Land Trust land, as well as West Rock State Park. It is 28.2 acres, and we have had preliminary discussions with the owners, and there is, I think, mutual interest in potentially selling the property to the town. We are looking to, potentially leverage funds that would be available from the state, and so that's where the grant application comes in. That application is due December 2nd. It comes up annually. It just so happens that the property just came up for sale. We are trying to move on this grant. We might not be able to get all the information together for the grant in time over the next month, but in the case that we are, we wanted to come before you to share our sort of interest in this and potentially seek an approval. Should there be a later, move forward with this, of course, we will come for an 824 and have that referred, but we're not at that stage yet, because what we're looking for ultimately will be an endorsement of this plan.
What is the nature of the property?
It's vacant. So
No structures?
there's no structures. So I should just note that I'm a member of the West Rock Ridge State Park Council. I serve in that capacity from Bethany, but I also view their meetings from Woodbridge, because at this last meeting where it was brought up, there was no one from Woodbridge who was present. So we did discuss it. So under the West Rock Ridge, there is a state statute or public act that affects it. And the first right of refusal goes to the state. So the state will be, again, looking into potentially purchasing this. Over the past 20 years, the state has been in negotiations several times with the owners of the property, and for whatever reason, they've never met, when it's come up for sale, it's whatever. So, the state will again be looking into acquiring it. It's something that was recommended by all the members who were in attendance at the West Rock Ridge State Park Council. So, the state, is looking into it. If it doesn't pass with the state, then it would fall back to the town. So, the state.
Where is it with respect to the Darling
It
property?
abuts.
To the south or the
northern
north?
side of it
Northern
abuts
side.
the Darling property.
That open field we're talking about, that's just north of the Darling property?
No,
It's
this is south.
It's south of the Darling House. There's a couple of
Oh,
properties,
okay.
or residential properties, but the way from Litchfield Turnpike, the property, moves east towards the river, and then the sort of eastern portion of the property comes up north and then abuts the Darling House property, the sort of eastern end of the Darling House property there.
So there's an expansive wetland which is on it. The West River flows through it. And just so you know, for reference, with the West Rock Ridge State Park thing, there's a view shed, and anytime something comes up for sale or change of use within that view shed, and the view shed extends into Woodbridge, into Bethany, into Hamden, and into New Haven, the state has to be approached first about potentially purchasing it.
So, and the,
So
The
this
park-
is something that the park, they would like to have.
Yeah.
because They own.
and they have the right first, though, if the town wanted it, the Open Space and Watershed Grant
Yeah.
Program is a great opportunity. It'd be interesting, though, for the state to give you the money instead of them buying it directly.
Yeah.
But that due date is obviously before our next meeting, and
That's why we're here.
Yeah, and what, remind me again, do you need something formal from us, or is it more of a, is it a letter from, that we are supportive of this versus a formal resolution?
I believe this will be a letter, I believe it'll be a letter. The document, sort of the grant application documents states this, that you need to have this, and then further in the application, I don't see a form that needs to be completed, so I take the sort of text of the grant application as to mean we would need to submit that as a supporting document along with the application. So we're looking into it a little deeper to be sure of exactly what we need, but the text that I sort of spoke with is quoted, must be endorsed by the local planning and zoning. So we'll also take it to conservation. They meet on the 21st, and of course we'll mention at the next Board of Selectmen meeting. We haven't had a chance, given the timing of things, so we wanted to make sure we were here doing our due diligence in case we were able to get this application up
I did talk to Tony Genovese about this because we've done other grant applications before. And when Tony was reviewing it, he seemed to think, which is why I didn't have it on your agenda, was that in the past on these grant applications, I've submitted something on behalf saying it's in compliance with your town plan or whatever it may be. But you can do a formal endorsement also, which certainly doesn't hurt.
We've reached out to SCROG for their assistance in helping us with the grant. It is a very ambitious grant from what we're told, and one that we don't know, as Steve mentioned, that we will get done. But it will require a letter, as Chris just described, in order for us to do it. So, and we would like nothing better than to see the state purchase it. We have trails in that area that can be connected, and there's a lot of purposes, beneficial purposes from our perspective. So, but if it's open space at the state, great, that's even better. But if not, if we can get a grant, obviously we'd like to consider that. Be that as it may, we'll still proceed whether we go with the grant or not. We'll still continue to evaluate the possibility of acquiring the property.
So for the commission members, I would move to approve a letter from our Planning and Zoning Commission in support of a grant application for 1875 Litchfield Turnpike submitted to the Deep Open Space and Watershed Grant Program. So I've moved that.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
I did.
Andrew?
Okay, thank you.
Should we also be indicating that it's consistent with our plan of conservation?
Yeah, our general letter of support, but I'm actually willing to have it come from me if that's at all helpful.
I can find out who it's,
Yeah,
yeah.
to
find out who
whichever
it's supposed to come from.
whichever author is the most impactful, which probably is not me. Actually, in this case, it might not
No,
hurt to
you
actually have my
have
name
more
on that
weight,
one.
yeah.
Yeah. Any further discussion?
No.
No. Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Good luck. And yes, tight timing on that application.
We'll see what we can do. Thank you so
I
much.
feel your pain.
Yeah,
Thank you very
it's-
much.
It would be a lovely, no matter who acquires it, a
Yeah.
lovely acquisition.
Great.
No
Okay.
housing ability there, it's all wet. Or steep.
Alrighty, so now approval of minutes, motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of December 3rd, 2024. Second?
I did have a couple of corrections on the minutes.
If
Sure.
you've got corrections, just give them to me.
Do you want me to send them to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Moved and seconded with Kathy's corrections. that'll
Can
be
I
sent.
vote in favor of these, or was it here as excused?
As long as you're not making the motion, as long as you read them, yeah.
Yes, I did.
Right. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving with the corrections that Kathy's going to send to Chris? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? No. Next up, I move to approve the meeting minutes of October 7th, 2024. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments, edits,
I
changes?
also have corrections to that one.
So, subject to the changes and edits from Kathy, which will be sent to Chris, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none. We've approved our minutes. Motion to adjourn. Seconded. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. No opposed, no abstentions. Thank you all for meeting today.